Ready? All right, let's go ahead and get this show on the road. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mike Kammerer,
Present.
Terry Witt,
Here.
Joe Stacy,
Here.
Bruce Hendricks,
Here.
Dan Palmer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, very good. Thanks so much. All right, first thing on the agenda is the approval of the June 29th, 2017 meeting minutes. Can I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second?
Was motioned by Dan Palmer, second by Bruce Hendrick. Do we need to have a vote on that as well?
Yeah, I can do it, okay. Dan Palmer,
Yes.
Bruce Hendricks,
Yes.
Terry Witt,
Yes.
Joe Stacy,
Yes.
Mike Kammerer.
Yes.
Approved.
Okay, moving right along here, recommendation of the bike path maintenance projects to be included in the capital improvement program. I think at that point, we can turn that over to staff, I think.
Or do we want the audience? Or are we going to do that later?
What do we got here? I think let's go ahead and wait for the audience into the old and new business, I think is what we can do.
Okay.
So this,
Yeah, that's, yeah, for the, we could do that at new business is good.
that'd be good. So I don't know you want to take it here, Jim, and give us an update on that?
All right. We have, as you know, in our previous meetings, we've been doing kind of research on the ownership of the bike path throughout the village, the condition. Tyler Isham, our management analyst who is shared between Public Works and Community Development, did the majority of this work. And as anything that the village needs to do that is required for what is considered a capital improvement, we have to eventually migrate it into our capital improvement budget, allocate funding for it, and then prioritize what needs to be done, because as you can see by the big chart here, we have a lot more bike path maintenance than we have funds available. So what we're trying to do today is get some feedback and get some recommendation from the committee to include some of the paths that are in what we consider in the top priority, and Tyler can go over that, but we did this in previous meetings, and give us some direction to include those in the capital improvement program so that the village board will adopt it. It's a 5-year program. We're not going to accomplish everything every year. I think right now, as Dan and Tyler have told you before, we have about 20,000 in bike path maintenance funds, half of which comes from the Park District and half of which comes from the village. So that's where we're at, and maybe Dan, Tyler, you want to fill in or add a little bit more to that? We're there.
Right, I was just going to add that we are working on capital right now, so we're hoping to try to increase that amount. And I think I've talked about this before, one area where the dollar will go further is if our crews could actually do the paving work ourselves. Because of all the other things we've been working on, we haven't even been able to get to that yet. We just started doing some pavement patching, so we're still hoping to get that portion of that stretch on the pipeline done as kind of an experiment to see if our crews can do it. I have no doubt that the crews can't do it, or that they can do it, but it's a matter of having time to be able to do it. So that's what we've been juggling.
I've got a question. Could this flow in with the ADA ramps? Because, like last meeting mentioned, the bike paths, when they're hitting the street, have a lot of bumps in them, and those ADA ramps, where they do exist, really make it a lot smoother, especially people pushing strollers and walkers, and, avoid tripping and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. All that takes dollars. I don't think that is factored into these numbers. But Tyler has also put together our ADA plan, and we have all those ramps, and that dollar amount
I did account for it there.
Yeah, because
there too. So we're trying to juggle everything, and
it just seems if a crew is in a specific area, it makes sense to,
if they're
Let them
touching
do
a
two
ramp,
things at the
at
same
that point,
time,
they would
yeah.
take care of it at that point.
so are we looking for recommendations on which paths we might want to fix? Jim, is that the reason for this?
I think we ranked them as a portion to what is most needed on this, in your accompanying chart, like the pipeline,
There's a priority year there.
Yeah.
Year one would be top priority, and then down from there.
And things happen, it could be flexible, and stuff can move, and
So did you say we had 20,000 total with which to work on all this with?
Our current budget is 10,000 that we have budgeted and 10,000 that the Park District has budgeted. So that's where,
I'm not a math major, but that's a problem. Look at
doesn't go very
budget
far,
being
I would agree.
66,000.
And that's where I'm currently working on our capital, and I'm proposing to raise that. The board would have to go, they're going to be reviewing that in November, I believe. And then the budget proceeds into spring. So that whole process would factor that all in.
Which we certainly are considering, but we just have the budget constraints from the state money that we've lost. And so we're trying to come up with ways to fund lots of different things. But there is, I think, a glimmer of hope when it comes to like the motor fuel tax and things of that nature, to be able to use some of that money for the bike paths as well. So I think that's certainly a possibility.
You know, Jim, it seems, Dan, it seems like I had a three-part comment here, if I may. You know, the Adopt a Path program, where'd that go? Is that?
The adopt a path is pick up trash, not,
it's more of a cleanup program by different
Cleanup
groups.
program?
Yeah. We'll take money, but generally, they just clean up, so.
All righty, because I think Girl Scout 112 has the one over there by the horse
Right,
farm.
it's usually Girl Scouts, Rotary, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, the village staff, they're different groups.
Yeah, I wish one of them had an asphalt truck. That'd be nice.
We could use that.
The other aspect, priorities-wise, if we're going to spend, we're always talking about don't have enough money, but if we're going to start fixing, we should identify the bike paths that are used the most, that'll be noticed the most by the repairs, and then that'll put in motion some type of appreciation for the improvements. If we go around with shovel loads of asphalt, patching holes here and there, it may not have an effect. You know, just spend the money. And I would also, on top of that, prioritize from the center of the city out. That may disqualify the initial concept, but the most utilized paths should be nice. Well, those are nice paths in Bartlett, because that's the one I want, that type of thing.
I think utilization was part of our consideration, but primarily it was the condition of them. And that's kind of what's at a, and it's a combination of both. So I think in terms of the ones, the pipeline one is used a lot. And that's, for lack of a better term, that one's used a lot. It's, as you can see, the year it was built in '94. Those 10, it's one of the older ones that we have, so.
What is the pipeline?
It's the one that goes from Stearns
South
Road, kind of southeast along the gas line. What's that?
They call it the Bartlett Trail?
yes.
Yeah,
Southwest,
southwest, yeah,
and
southwest.
behind the funeral home.
Right, right,
Sunrise Park?
right.
Yeah, I
so if we have 20,000 to start and total cost in today's dollars is 283,000 to do everything, that's, obviously we would like to do it a little quicker. How did you arrive at the village share of being one half that? I know we get grants sometimes, but not necessarily all the time, or am I mistaken?
This is like the 10-year plan of this is the 10-year plan of projects.
Right?
So for the first year, the project that we want to do the most would be the pipeline. So that's the one we're saying, right now, we only get budgeted 20,000.
I get that, and I see a total of 283,340, but I see the village share is one half that.
Right.
How,
That would be if we worked with the Park District to continue that.
so assuming they get, if the Park District picks up half on
Right.
every path in town?
Right.
Okay.
And then there's also, I mean, as you know, we obviously have always been applying for grants and things like that to help us
So
as
it
well, which could
conceivably
make
could
the
be
cost
less.
go lower, but you'd rather plan for worst-case scenario.
I think that's kind of what we've always planned on, is going for the ones in the worst repair, although I don't disagree that we need to have, utilize the paths that are utilized the most, but if we got segments that are just falling apart, we have to fix those too, I think, so. I mean, hopefully they coincide with each other to some degree, I don't know for certain, but I feel like there's an echo here. But if there is, I think we obviously got to try to fix the places that really are in need of being repaired, but if they're in the areas that we're using the most, then that's all the better, I guess.
Yeah. I guess we want our bike paths to make a good impression. You know, if someone's here riding, a local resident, the money's being spent wisely. Yeah, if they're on a path that's in good shape, most of the time when they ride, they're probably going to say that money's being spent efficiently. I think, rather than, it seems like a patch job on some of these paths, or just, we see today where they throw the hot asphalt and they wait for your family car to come by and tamp it down.
Do we have a balance in that fund currently, or we're looking to fund it?
Zero.
It's zero.
Actually, I don't know if we did any this year yet. We're still,
Did we have a budget in the current fiscal year?
this is 10.
10 and 10? And-
Yeah.
We're hoping to get our guys out for snow flies,
Okay.
try to get a portion of this pipe.
I think since it's a 5-year capital budget, and if you look in the priority years, we would at least like to include the 1 through 5 years in the program and just adjust it accordingly.
Back up a second here. The pipeline goes southwest from South Bartlett and Stearns to Struckman. They did a large portion of that. I remember walking over it after it was freshly laid. So,
By the school.
okay.
When we get the water pipeline installed, according to the paper, you're looking to put it down Stearns Road. Is that going to affect the bike path that's along Stearns Road, or will it be on the other side, or?
To be determined, but chances are it will be on that. And the good thing with that is when we're done, we'll build a new bike path, so a portion of it would get fixed at that point. But we're trying to nail down where the best spot for that water main is, but chances are it will be on the north side.
And would that money to put down a new path over the top of it or alongside of it, would that come out of this fund, or would the water main?
The water project would pay for that.
Okay, well, run it all the
We're
way
actually in
down
discussions
Stearns.
with the Park District to continue west of South Bartlett on the north side as well, so they could include some of that as well. But that's one way we can get water main or bike paths replaced too, is if we have a project. But
Okay, sounds good.
Any other questions from the board on the priorities of path, or any other comments about what you want to be accomplished?
Will we be asking for anything else in the capital budget beside trail maintenance, such as signage, wayfinding signage, pointing people out, hey, follow this trail, and, for a mile and a half, and you can get to the library?
not in the capital, that would be more in our operating budget. We do have the DNR or state park trails that we continue to have in there that we had grant funding for that got held up. So that's going to be in the budget again for next year. We just recently asked for an extension
Right.
for that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not putting any signage in. If we do some signage, if there's some opportunity to get it with we're exploring another grant for the accessibility. I guess we could look at signage for that, but I think we're in a situation where you're going to be fixing what's broken rather than adding to things. That's kind of where we're at now.
Is lighting on the path ever apply for like dark paths, like the one just that path that winds through the woods just north of the library there is really dark at night. And I don't know if the light can be shared from the street lights or some inexpensive way of lighting that path. It's kind of.
I'm going to, in that situation, you're kind of in the forest preserve property, and I think that they probably wouldn't want it, but I think your ambient light is your best light for paths. I don't know if I've ever seen any where they actually provide lights along them other than what's street lighting or, as you say, park lights or anything like that.
Right.
Some of that could be just trimming up those trees. I think there's streetlights. I went around the other side of the street maybe, but, you know, maybe trimming up the trees a little bit higher so that some of that light gets in.
It's dark there. It's dark there at night.
Right.
I know that I've received some, bringing up the tree trimming and comments and stuff. I've received comments from residents in town about some of the paths being overhung with branches and stuff, and I forwarded that on to Dan, and he's been right on top of it, so he's done a great job, and the Public Works has done a great job of getting things done very quickly. I appreciate that, Dan. I don't know if I told you that before, but it does make the residents happy, and they come back and thank me, which is always good as well. So you guys are doing a good job, and hopefully we can just keep everything coming back as much as we can and keep as much light coming in as possible as well.
What was the reference that Dan made about some zero site or some request through a zero? On previous notes in the last meeting, you said you commented, put a request in through a particular vendor and something was taken care of?
Oh, that had to do with the reporting problems, the Go Request app. If you have an issue with tree trimming, I've had real good success. When I walked all over town, there'd be trees hanging down, bushes across things, cracked pavement, et cetera. You just take a picture and you report it. And they'd get to it when they could, and most of the time it was pretty prompt.
Who are those people?
Well, it all goes to them, and I think that sometimes I've been in town for 100 years, and I'm unsure sometimes if it's county or if it's village or whatnot, and if it's theirs, they'll take care of it. If it's not, they'll send it to Forest Preserve or DuPage County or Cook County, whoever it might be.
We have an online or app reporting of problems, and so they come into our IT people, and then they, in their best judgment, give it to the right department to address, whether it's Public Works, Code Enforcement, Police, Community Development. And that's called the Go Request. And that's something that we've developed internally, and as Dan said.
Does everybody know what that
respond
is?
to that, so.
Go Request? I mean, you could probably use some
an app.
more marketing on that, because I tell people, like,
From my perspective, I would suggest that it's marketed enough, but everybody's responding. You have to respond within a certain time frame.
that's what I like about it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
It holds the accountability.
right. But it works, it's very effective.
Done a good job. Any other comments, concerns, questions before we move on to the next section?
We're looking for a recommendation.
Find
to
more
vote
money,
on.
how's that?
All right.
And maybe what do you think, Dan, the first five-year priority, the 1 to 5 that's marked in this chart? And then we'll plug them in appropriately into the capital budget?
Meaning like 1 this year, 2 next year, 3?
Right.
Ideally, and if we get some additional funding.
Did you break that cost down by year to kind of even it out, so to speak?
No, I think it's broken down by the.
Priority.
The path priority.
Since it's broken up by priority, if they just agree with the plan, then we can go from there. We know that priority year 1 is the pipeline, and then year 2, so they don't have to really specify. We know we're doing a 5-year capital program, so I think they just need to decide if they agree with the plan or not.
66K is the remaining, do the remaining pipeline path, what wasn't done last year?
And that number, I think, is based on if we had a contractor come in and do it. Again, we're trying to get our guys to do it, which would bring that cost way down, which means the 20,000 would go a lot further, so.
Yeah, all these numbers are based on if a contractor were to do it. So if our crews do it, obviously that number goes way down, just like Dan said.
Maybe we should ask it this way. Is there any reason why anyone on the committee would object to doing the repairs and work in the priority years that are listed?
Well, just a question, 2 and 3 are West Bartlett, Devon heading east, and that's right in the middle of the swale. Yep, it's on our agenda to talk about, so how are we going to work that one out?
There's a portion right at the church you're talking about. We
Yeah.
actually have we were able to get a grant to get engineering done to try to fix that issue. So that piece would be taken out of it, because we have to get the engineering done, and then assuming there's a project after that that gets funded, we would be taking care of the bike path at that point. But there's drainage issues that need to be dealt with first for that section.
Right, so I guess my question is that grant going to cover this cost so that we don't need to have that cost in here?
No, the grant covers the engineering to find out what we need to do in that area, and then from there, we would have construction, which would then, the bike path itself would get taken care of, but it's gonna be a much bigger project than just
Right. I'm
surfacing a bike
I
path.
mean, if it's $500,000, that's obviously not going to be covered by this.
So we would probably, at least for that stretch, we'd probably skip over that, since we're in the middle of something already, and we'd move down to, we got like year 2, we got Wallace Court, you got ComEd right-of-way stuff is right there, so we'd be looking at that type of stuff.
I mean, I just look at it as, 9 months ago, or however long ago it was before we started this, we didn't have a plan. We didn't know where we were. So
Right.
now we have an idea where we're at. I think we make a recommendation to get the funds in the capital budget. And if your crew can start to do some of the work and we can get more work done, then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And it will at least have a starting point. And then we'll, 6 months from now, we'll have a better idea. A year from now, we'll have a better idea. And we hopefully, if we can get more money in the capital budget to get this moved faster, I think we want to try to make that clear to the board that that's what we want, because, I run in a lot, and it's an active community we have, and so having good paths is important. They're used, and so, but we just got to start it. So I say we recommend we fund it, or ask for funding for it, and we do as best as we can, and we keep moving forward.
I agree.
One of the things, and I don't know if it's now that we were looking at recommendations for the different phases and expenses and stuff, which leads us to, as far as a committee making a recommendation to the board, is it appropriate at this point in time that we have some feel of how much money we would recommend that the board think about setting aside? I mean, should we do that or not? What do you think? I mean, because if we know that to get things accomplished, if we only have 10,000 a year that we're putting towards it, this is going to go on for years and years. But if we can say, all right, this committee is making a recommendation to the board of, we would like to see a budget of 50,000 or something of that nature, at least we're coming to the board with a recommendation that it's either going to be approved or disapproved. And unfortunately, like I said, the finances are not just, as we know, readily available, with the state being the way they are lately. But I still think it'd be at least something we could say, here's what, as a committee, we're recommending, and, perhaps we have some extra money we can come from the motor fuel tax and put towards bike paths instead of paving Rizika Park, things of that nature. So,
Are we
Yeah, I
recommending?
think putting in a dollar amount is always helpful for the board to make their decision. We're giving you the best available information as Tyler and Dan's staff compiled. So if you say, let's recommend the plan, and then think every year we should put in X more than the 10,000, that helps us and helps, and now then it's up to the board to allocate those funds.
One thing we would have to keep in mind is, right now, Park District has agreed to 10,000. Anything above that, we would obviously have to go to them and see what they would be willing, what they're able to go to if maybe they can go up to 20, you know, I don't know what that dollar amount is, but we'd have to get their, whatever they're willing to commit to, and then above and beyond that would be, you know, village, or whether we're just gonna keep it as a 50-50 and whatever they're able to go up to, we, you know, $50,000 is probably a good number. We would be able to get quite a bit done even if we were using a contractor. So it's probably a good starting point. And so then if, in that case, we'd be going to the park district and seeing if they could go to 25 or something higher than 10, you know, at that
About
point.
sports, Dan, they're very competitive people. They don't want to lose, so they're going to be like wanting to match that with us, I'm sure.
It's funny that you say the 50,000, because that's what I was thinking. I mean, it's roughly, that would basically try to get us through most of the critical plan in the next 5 years.
Right.
So I think 50,000 is a great number to ask for in 25.
Jim, are you looking for us to adopt some kind of 5-year capital recommendation or the next year, 1-year budget request?
Well, I think we'd like to get it into the capital budget, so you're kind of adopting this plan to incorporate into the capital budget, which is a 5-year plan, and it would be great to recommend 50,000 per year.
Yeah. I'll make that recommendation for sure. I think that's
Get a motion, then.
Can we do that? I make
Okay,
a
go ahead.
recommendation that we adopt this plan, and we try to fulfill this plan within 5 years, which we'll ask for 50,000 if we can. This year.
Terry seconded. Terry Second.
All right. Roll call. Joe Stacy,
Yes.
Terry Witt,
Yes?
Bruce Hendricks,
Yes.
Dan Palmer,
Yes.
Mike Kammerer.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Push that a little bit, because I think that gives the board a little direction, and
Yeah.
then we can, it doesn't mean it's going to be approved, but at least we can go before us now and have another step in the process to having more money, so that when we talk about doing things, we can actually get something done. So that's good. All right, any other, well, we're going to make the recommendations to move forward with the priority years as recommended by staff, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does there need to be a vote on that? Or motion?
I don't think so. I think that, as Dan said, the old,
It's outlined that
the
way.
the chart kind of lays it
Plan.
out, so
Yep.
we would put it in the capital improvement plan based on this priority years.
Very good. All right, then that will be our recommendation as a committee to the board, that we, and to staff, that we progress on and follow the recommendations set before us. And then we will also have the recommendations of 50,000 a year as a budget for the bike committee. And I think that's appropriate, whether it's approved or not. There's no guarantee, but we can certainly bring it before the board. That being said, now I'd like to take the opportunity to have the folks in the audience either introduce themselves if they so wish, or we'll even let you make a comment or two if you'll keep it to 3 to 4 minutes like we do in a board meeting.
Not all at once.
You have to come,
Come up to the microphone, state your name and address, and then, like I said, say what you want to say, but just keep it brief.
My name is Gary Prince. I live at 480 South Hickory, and been a resident for over 20 years. We've actually downsized to a different home, and we're happy about that. One of the questions I have is, what is the criteria for something that's considered a bike path versus something that is a sidewalk area? There's, along Bartlett Road, there's some areas there that's, it's asphalt, but yet it's kind of in a residential, and it, as you know, asphalt doesn't last very long. The weeds are stronger than the asphalt is. But I was just wondering if, is it because parts of the village, or what that might?
Staff, we can direct that to Jim or to Dan.
It's a lot of both.
Out of
A
both?
sidewalk is really, in our subdivision code, a sidewalk is a 4-foot, now we've adopted a 5-foot wide concrete slab put in along with the subdivisions that we see developed around town. Over the years, the village has had a bike path plan and a bike path program for 25, 30 years, maybe even more. And what's happened is that originally a bike path typically would be a 6-foot wide asphalt path. That went back in when they first started building them. And over the course of time, and the Forest Preserve and the Park District knows that, the path, the standard typical path has expanded. It went from 8, now it's a 10-foot with a shoulder. And what we try to do when we get grants for them, we have to design them to the standard that the DNR, who does a lot of the grants, it's a 10-foot wide path. So you'll see a mixture of all of them over the years, because some of them that were put in years ago are still in place. The South Bartlett Road one's an example. When that was put in, that was a 6-foot wide asphalt path. No shoulders, just kind of not really pertaining to grades and all that type of stuff. And then where you go to the ComEd one or the pipeline one, those are, I don't know if the pipeline, but the ComEd ones are 10-foot paths with the shoulder and that, because those were all obtained through grant monies through the state or through the DNR. So ideally, if you have the room, when you upgrade your path, you try to get to that 10-foot standard. And you'll see, and then when we ask developers, because we make developers put in paths where we designate them on our bike path plan map, they put it into the 10-foot standard if they have room. Now, recently, we had one that there was a little argument over how wide it should be, and they ended up putting in 6 or 8, yeah.
Yeah.
So they put in a little narrower one, only because of the way
transitioned.
it transitioned from where we're talking about in front of the church, where that drainage swale is, because that's part of the path, and we transitioned it to a sidewalk, so it was a little narrower, but usually we try for the 10-foot standard now.
I just was looking where where it's a concrete sidewalk 4 feet wide, and then it doesn't transition right to 10 feet. It maintains more of what the sidewalk is.
Yeah, and that's one of the older ones, and developers always give you a little pushback, because obviously it costs money for them to put it in, so they're like, why should I put in a 10-foot one when you only have 4 and 6, so. But the sidewalk standard is something we adhere to, and we try to make developers do that 10-foot standard whenever it's possible.
Thank you.
Jim, along with that, they rate the paths on this Transportation Alliance map. They got ratings and they have different colors coded, that's some type of rating on the paths. They have car-free down to shared paths and different colors, all the way degraded down to fair bike route. So I'm thinking that may be a route that goes from asphalt to cement to driveway type thing.
Yeah, all
So you
different.
get there safely.
Yeah, some of
That's
that's
a
the
good point.
bicycle level of service, how comfortable people feel on the different, because some of those will be on-street routes as well. So that's not just purely side paths.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jackie Blodgett. I live at 1224 Dunneman, and we've been here for 14 years. And I was here back in March about the Kickstand.
Thank you.
And my question was, so on Saturday, I was going down Dunneman to Newport, and I've noticed around the village, there's the big sign saying that the certain streets will be closed and the time and everything. And I saw a small sign on the stop sign, bolted in with the same information. And with the construction and everything, I've been going down that road more because I've been avoiding County Farm. And Saturday was the first time I'd seen that sign. When I came back around after my shopping, I came down on County Farm to Dunneman, and I didn't see any of the big signs saying that, even though technically Dunneman isn't going to be closed, that you can't get through it. And that was our issue last year, is that people were turning off of County Farm onto Dunneman, And then once they hit Newport, it was closed, they couldn't get through, so they were like flying up people's driveways, turning around, flying out. When I talked to the sergeant, they said they weren't going to put a sign there, and I called and left them a message. I haven't heard back. So does anybody have any information if there's, are they going to close the road? What are they going to do on Sunday?
Do you have that? Because I've talked to Kyle about that. So
There are road closed signs there now, but I don't know if that's pertaining to the construction, because they've started back up with the construction.
I believe they will have, on County Farm, they're going to have road closed signs there.
Okay.
Might not all be out yet. We're still bringing all the barricades out.
Okay.
They'll continue tomorrow. But I remember Jeff talking to my guys about some of those issues that we had and trying to avoid that. So we added some road closed signs out on County Farm along those roads, so I believe it will be covered. I'll verify.
At an angle, so that you can see them before you turn in there.
Right, okay.
It's at an angle facing both ways at I think it's Longford as well as Donovan.
Okay, all right, great. That was it, thank you.
My name is John Getz. I've been a resident for about 14 years, Woodland Hills resident in Bartlett. My comment today is more about signage, not navigational, but more about safety, and maybe more on the motorist side of it. There's a number of trails I ride pretty much daily where there's a stop sign and the trail passes and then the street. Well, the cars don't stop at the stop sign, they stop at the street. So I was wondering if what it would take to get some trail crossing signs. I think I've seen some yellow diamonds that say trail crossing. The primary location is at 59 and Schick and the high school. The exit on the east side of the high school when it comes into Schick. The cars don't seem to stop at the stop sign in the path, they stop at the street, which is past where the path is. There's also a number of them along Stearns, where it might be sidewalk there, west of Main Street. But I know east of Main Street, where that path where you're talking about the water main going in, there's a number of crossings there where there's just no signage. So any way we can talk to the motor division or somehow to add some safety signs?
Well, Dan, is that something Public Works can do with signage, or is that something we really don't do?
We haven't really put those up, but we could take a look at, I wrote down Route 59 in Schick and then the high school entrance.
I wrote them
Oh, you
down.
did?
I got them.
Okay.
I got them.
I wasn't writing fast enough, and
I
I
got
don't
'em.
know if Dan was, so you can. All right.
I think I have them, so.
The high school is the important one. There's a lot of cars coming in and out of there.
Yeah.
But I think
mean,
you
it's
understand-
still, it's a law, you're supposed to stop at the, but
Yeah, and
whether they're gonna follow the sign or not is a whole nother question, but we can take a look at it.
sure. Well, yeah, I mean, whether they break the law on a sign or not, but at least have some yellow signage or something that says that there's a trail crossing, because that could be dangerous.
Yeah, sometimes just refreshing the white paint, making it really bright, is, I mean, it's an issue all over town.
Schick and, Petersdorf and Schick is actually scheduled for resurfacing next year. So that will all get restriped, it'll be
Okay.
freshened up and all that, and we would address it at that point most
Okay.
likely. But we could definitely look at if signage can help as well, so.
Okay. And then just quickly, my second comment, I did use that GO request to request some trail clearing on 59 between Gulfstream and Granger, and it took 2 days to have it done, so thank you.
You know, just another comment similar to John was saying, you know, right turns on the South Bartlett Road, right turns on Red are more like coasting through. So that's another area where we could use nice bright white. Now that we've got a bridge going across County Farm Road, there are so many more people riding down South Bartlett to Struckman to get onto the trail over there. And when you're riding down South Bartlett Road, there's 2 or 3 lights there where people are supposed to stop at red lights, look, then make their right turn, but there's still a few people who like to coast through those red lights. Same way down at Schick and South Bartlett Road. So I know that one sign that you put has really helped a lot, facing the traffic as you're coming down South Park Road to, hey, let the pedestrians get across.
And we do have the capabilities of making some of these signs, don't we, Dan? I mean, as far as, we don't have to buy signs, and they're relatively inexpensive to make. All right, okay.
Sounds like most of it's freshening up,
Okay,
ped crossings, stop bars, and that type of stuff, so.
okay.
Yeah, I think that really gets 98% of the people, most of the people want to stop. There's just a few.
Dan, what are those reflective devices you put in, you know, those things you pound in the pavement or glue to the pavement, are those?
For the center line stuff?
Well, like for marking a crossing or something, you know, like a reflective?
We use them like for the skip dash in the center line, if you're talking about the reflectors for at night. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't know, it just seems like the white paint is kind of good, but something that's more reflective would be better. Like for these stops coming out of the high school on the Schick there. I about got to run over there myself several times. That's like a gang warfare after school lets out.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, just as a side note, that turn you make off at Devon and continue on Devon there by the steel factory, you know, you have to really overshoot that turn to get in there. Everybody undershoots it, and there's always somebody there, you know, in proper position to make the turn left on the Newport. And it's you know, it's just, you really got to feel that out. My wife yells at me all the time, so I cut it short too. You got to go way out to turn. I don't know if that could be marked with a reflective thing to show where that turn starts. That's that. You know what I'm talking about?
Right at Devon and Newport you're talking about, right?
Yeah, Devon to Newport there. It's a really sharp turn to stay in your lane.
All right, well, yeah, so if we can just look at some of these areas and see if it's appropriate for signs or markings or something, well, then we'll try to, some of those can be easy fix, and we'll see if we can do something with that, if we can. Next.
I'm Jessica Ortega. I'm with the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County, and I just had a couple things I wanted to share with the group today. First, we have a tentatively set public information meeting for the trail extension that we're working on from the Woodland Hills neighborhood over from Forest Preserve Drive along Munger Road to connect to the Illinois Prairie Path. Pretty much the only thing that's tentative about that is we need Wayne Township to approve our location, which we're proposing to be the Wayne Township Senior Center. So once that's approved next week, we'll be able to provide some more information about date and time, but right now tentatively November 8th. And we'll be inviting you know, all residents within 1,000 feet of the project area, and also including information on our website. And I wanted to let this group know about that meeting as well. Additionally, the Forest Preserve is undertaking a new master plan. The last time we did one was in 1992, and so we're asking for input from residents, the public, our stakeholders. So we are hosting a series of 6 community meetings, one in each of our voting districts in DuPage County, and we'll be having one in District 6 next week on Tuesday, October 3rd at 7 p.m., and Bartlett's in District 6. So I wanted to extend the invitation to everyone here, and if you could help us, you know, let your friends and neighbors know, so you have that opportunity to come to the meeting and provide some input. Additionally, we have a special website set up on our webpage. It's dupageforest.org/master-plan, and I have some postcards here that I can leave with all of you if you'd like, with some information about that. And we'll be posting updates about our process. There's an email there that you can submit any comments that you might have. Also, we're meeting with stakeholders, and a specific meeting we're having on October 17th is with bike enthusiasts and active transportation advocates. And I know Terry's been invited to that meeting, so he'll be representing that this kind of area there in that meeting. So, you know, if you've got any information that you want to pass along to Terry, I'd really appreciate that, or you can contact me directly. Additionally, we'll be doing a random sample and public survey that'll be coming out probably next month. So if you get one in the mail, please fill it out and send it back. And then once that's complete, we'll have that on our website and anyone can take it. And I'd be happy to push that link out to staff here and promote that. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Jessica. I should have done it earlier, but Jessica and Kelly from the Forest Preserve, or at Park District, and Jessica from the Forest Preserve are going to be joining us. And Kelly, you're probably going to alternate with somebody? I don't know. Yeah. But thanks for coming.
Anyone else like to say anything?
Diana Gunstein, 1039 Elmwood Lane. Been a resident. I'm also a Park District Commissioner. Terry had invited me. I'd spoken to him. I've met with him a couple of times, toured bike paths in the area. And as a parent and a runner and a somewhat bike user, I live off of West Bartlett Road, so I know exactly the spot you're talking about with that swale in front of the church, because me and my kids hit that a lot and find the trouble that we have to trek around. If you've ever done that with a 4-year-old, it's quite cumbersome. But I want to talk too about connecting the bike paths. I know we're talking about repairing existing bike paths and what's there, but it seems like there's a lot of spots, or, I'm looking to move within town, and one of my biggest concerns is how can I get to all of our favorite spots? How can I get to the Park District, to the library, and all of these spots? And a lot of what we're doing is looking at the bike paths. Can my kids eventually ride their bikes to the pool, the library, all the places they want to go? And it just seems like there's some, and I know we have 59 running straight down, but that's something I'd like to consider, and maybe a master plan. I'm not talking next year, 3 year, but in the next 5 years, 10 years, do we have a plan to connect some of these bike paths? And I know it all comes back to funding and possible different developers coming and what those plans are. So not really a question, just kind of a statement to kind of keep in the back of your minds as we're doing some bigger planning. And also, as a side note too, I have also had the opportunity to use that Go app, and I've had on 2 separate occasions. One, and I've gotten a phone call back the next day about a sidewalk on the street that we're constantly tripping over, and it looks like it's being fixed because it's all been marked. So thank you for all of that. And then also another instance where ComEd dug up my yard and then didn't put it back properly, so all of our neighbors were flooding back, and it took a while, but it was fixed. So it is working, and it's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Like I like to say, nothing that money can't fix. And so we'd be happy to entertain, working with the Park District to come up with a plan and funding. And if you guys can come up with something, we can come up with something. Yeah, we could connect a lot of bike paths. But, it's that money issue, always that money issue. It's a shame.
Well, it also goes back to the comment about where we were 9 months ago versus where we are today. We also decided we needed to kind of assess the trails that we have that are in really need of repair. So, that's kind of our first focus, and then as we move forward with that, we look to, there's definitely paths we want to add to, but, we got to fix the ones that are broken.
Very good. Okay, anyone else? We've got through everyone, I think. All right. That being said, let's move on to any old business. New business.
I thought I'd just go over down the lane here, and first of all, we have, Terry brought this up about our website and updating it. I had a discussion with Terry, and our website operator, I don't know, she's our public relations person, but she handles the website. So she did some of these updates under our community. The website has a dedicated page named Bike Trails, links to trail bike path map, updated in 2014. There's also a subpage regarding bike safety and events. And there's the safety quiz that Terry has us take every year. And we've had it on there for a bit. And then we added a link to a one-page PDF for bike laws in Illinois and from the Ride Illinois website for those of you interested in bike path safety. And she will continue to update that information as it becomes available. So that's some of the information that there was an old bike path map on there, and we had it was a link problem. It was linking to the wrong map. So she's checked that and has updated that, thanks to Terry.
Yeah, the map that's on there right now, it's really clear. So much easier to read.
Right.
But it's still 4 years out of date.
Oh, new bridge, missing. Yeah, the new bridge.
Well,
The connection to
No, there-
Mallard Lake.
is there a way that we can update the current village bike map to at least what's in existence? Because I think once we do that, it's going to help make, okay, where should we go next? But until we have exactly where we're at,
When we do the updates.
you know, it's kind of hard to.
We do that map gallery update on an annual basis, and then that'll be something that we update all those maps. I don't know, we get 30 maps on there, maybe more. So we do that on an annual basis.
Okay, well, this one says 2014.
That was when the last time we updated the bike path one.
Yeah.
so.
But it's got things on here like a planned trail along Army Trail. I don't think that's accurate. And it still has the old idea of coming out of Woodland Hills on the pipeline. And now we're going to get the new trail coming off of Forest Preserve Drive going south, you know. And so that, you know, we've got more information that we could use to update it. And there's some other trails on here I don't think we're ever going to do, like going through Wayne Grove, straight west across the north end of Beaver Pond, through the wetlands and a mid-block crossing on 59. Well, we're talking millions of dollars. I don't think we're going to ever do that one. I mean, we ought to take some of this stuff out, because we want people to look at this, because we don't print paper maps anymore and distribute them. So this is a place for people to go to say, hey, where can I ride? Where can I ride now?
We'll update it.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions with the website? You want to just continue on, Jim, down the?
This one, I'll let Tyler handle this one.
So the last time I brought up the Invest in Cook grant was originally discussed on the March 30th committee meeting, and I believe we had an update at the just previous one, and now I'm happy to say that in July we were awarded that grant for $75,000, which includes the design engineering for all the drainage issues and bike path replacement, whatever that final cost may be, I don't know. But Cook County is providing that funding with no local share.
I like that kind of grant.
I do too.
And Tyler's good at writing grants, so he promised us next year he'll get the grant to construct it.
I'm gonna try. I don't know if they'll pay for the whole thing depending on what the
Right.
final cost is, but
That's a big project.
With
Or has
the
potential.
state issues, has there been any delay in grant projects funding?
with the state ones,
Yeah.
yeah, there's been a lot of,
Yes.
But this one was Cook County, right?
yeah, this was just Cook County. This was a Cook County funded through their transportation in their new plan of connecting Cook County. They set the $8.5 million aside. They ended up, I think, providing close to $8 million in grant awards through this. And so we have the intergovernmental agreement at the next board meeting for approval. At that point, it'll be sent over to Cook County, where it should get final approval and we can get rolling.
Great job.
So we're looking at maybe a year before we go out for bidding? And then it could be another 2 or 3 years after that before we have a final plan. So 2020.
Depending.
Okay. That's actually not too bad, considering sometimes it takes 10, 20 years.
And thanks, Tyler. Should I just keep rolling here? Yep. The Kickstand Classic is coming up on October 1st, which is Sunday. All the barricades are being put out. Public Works, the police have coordinated all again, the race is going to be in the same location as last year. Start down here, go along Devon, Newport, over to Stearns, and then up South Bartlett, same layout. We've got, when I spoke to them last, they had 489 riders signed up. So they always get a lot at the end, so hopefully, I think we're shooting, that 600 was.
600 was the goal.
Was the goal, so they might get to that. We're gonna have the band, the festival, there's gonna be some food vendors, O'Hare's this year. I think we're, probably Marco's Pizza, they're looking at other vendors. We've got some new sponsors, Amita Health, Revolution Brewing coming and sponsor it, so those are some new sponsors. Amita's gonna have a major presence in the village real soon, and I won't say any more yet.
Stop.
So that's all I'm told to say, but they're looking forward to being in Bartlett, and should be a good race. The weather's looking nice, so we had fun last year. Hopefully we'll have fun this year.
Everybody
Christy's gonna
signed up,
ride.
right?
Yeah. Christy's gonna be in it.
I'm
Mike,
doing it.
you're in it.
My daughter's doing it with me.
Bruce is in it, her daughter, so.
I'll be in the non-spandex division.
Yeah. So it promises to be another nice event, so.
I was driving into the city, on 290 at St. Charles Road, maybe there, kind of Lake Street. There's a big billboard there, and they had it on there.
Yeah, they did some billboard advertising. We did a radio spot or TV spot on Comcast where we plugged that with the Heritage Days, so it got some good play.
Yeah, good.
And you mentioned Amita Health a few years ago, maybe it's 5 or 6 years ago. They had a promotion where they had bicycle helmets that they were giving away. They met all the safety standards. They weren't the real expensive ones, but they were really good for kids. And maybe in your conversations with Amita Health as they warm up, perhaps we might be able to have some kind of bicycle safety event day with Amita Health and the Park District, and have kind of a rodeo and a safety thing, and have the police help, and, you know, a really big event. And Amita might be able to give out some bicycle helmets to the kids.
That's a good idea.
I'm sure I could get Greg to get a mechanical person over there to
Yeah, I think, you know,
check out the bicycles.
they were excited about being involved in this event, and they're gonna have a first aid station and give some health tips out, so.
You know, Jim, I was biting at the bit to address this topic of the national anthem. This band going to play the national anthem? Is there any?
High school band's coming at 7:30, so I don't know what I think they played it last year, didn't they?
I don't remember.
I don't know what they're playing, but they are coming again.
Seems appropriate. I almost
That's at
wanna
the
encourage that.
beginning of, real early, isn't it?
Well, 7:30. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the
When-
first wave's at like 6:30.
Yeah,
So
when
it's
the
the
real
second wave.
bicyclists are out there.
Yeah.
We can plug them and say, play the national anthem. I don't know what they're playing.
I was there.
I don't give them.
Get a protest?
Yeah,
No, I'm not going to protest.
yeah.
I feel really strong about this thing. It's, you know,
We'll ask them. Well, I don't know who, it was the Kickstand people to getting the high school, so we'll have to
Yeah.
talk to their band director and see. I'm sure he'd be open to doing that.
Is it their band or?
It's the high school.
High school band, our high school band plays it.
Yeah.
They came, they were nice.
Yeah.
They were having fun, and then they volunteered and filled in some
I don't
slots.
even know if it's one of their songs that they play.
Yeah, I don't.
Period.
Yeah.
I know
I'm
they had
guessing
some
they-
new pop hits they were planning on trying out.
Who was
That's
there
about
at
the extent
7:30
that
last
we've
year?
heard of.
Yeah, they played.
Any memory?
I don't think, yeah.
They played music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's band music, so we'll check with them.
Yeah, I think it's more like their
email 'em.
halftime show,
Yeah.
which I don't think is the national anthem, so. Yeah,
Yeah,
oh, do they?
yeah, there you go.
Bartlett the Beautiful.
Right. Just moving on, train station bike shelter grant submittal. We talked about it in previous, I think our last meeting, and we were participating in a group bike shelter and bike rack application with the DuPage Mayors and Managers Transportation Committee. I think there were 6 towns that submitted a joint application. Elmhurst took the lead, and we submitted for a bike shelter and 10 bike racks. Is that right, the number 10?
I thought it was 11.
11 bike racks to be placed around town. The grant was submitted by Elmhurst a couple of weeks ago, and we haven't heard yet, but if we get it, we have gotten one of these before, and so if we get it, this stuff will be constructed next year. And Dan's people agreed to put the bike shelter up and install the bike rack. So rather than contract it out, we'll be able to do it in-house. The Village of Lombard has assured me that Public Works guys will be able to do this because their guys are hoping to do it. So it's a pattern after what Lombard asked for. So that was another application we did. And just moving along, you talked about the state funding. With our IDNR bike grant, this bike path was, we got this grant 3 years ago?
4.
4 years ago. We still hung in there and kept in renewing with the DNR. I talked to Russ Fuller, who's with the DNR early September, and we have applied for our second amendment for this grant. So he's saying, hang in there, that we may get the money yet. The engineer who designed it asked me if we ever built it, and I said no, but he said, our design still stands, so I'm sure that it'll be fine. And this is a 10-foot path link in the state park to link Lakewood Mills subdivision into the state park bike path system, and then also another link into Kohler Fields of Bartlett. So, and then that'll connect back around. So we asked for it, and I told Russ, I said, you know a lot of people there, why don't you shake some money loose? So he was actually going down to the appropriations department and ask him that. So hopefully we'll get the money for it and put that in. And that is, I think, is that everything on there? That's everything on the agenda. Thank you.
I had one item for new business, and actually, Jim getting that information from Lombard is kind of interesting because what I saw was in Lombard, and I don't know how much they cost, but if bike racks cost $27,000 for that few of them, these can't be cheap either. But I know back in my cop days, people putting their nice bikes up by the train station while they were downtown Chicago all day didn't necessarily always work out well. And I noticed for the first time, I'm surprised I hadn't seen them before, in Lombard, they had bicycle lockers. Anybody ever seen anything like that?
They're expensive.
They are expensive.
Schaumburg has a real nice setup, but.
Too much?
Charge their residents $20 a year for a key.
$20 a year?
Yeah.
I think you could
They're
get more than that.
subsidizing it.
But I still don't think you're going to recoup the cost. So anyway, it was an observation. I don't know how you encourage more people to bicycle to the train station to go to work, especially if they have a nice bicycle, because you're not going to have a cop there 24/7, and cameras can be defeated for somebody really motivated. So just wanted to throw that piece. They exist. I think it's a good idea. I don't know how it works practically. I don't know how it works economically, but just a thought.
Well, if you want to go one further, we could take one of those vacant town center office buildings and turn it into a bike valet and.
Bike valet.
Yeah, you know.
I'm interested in seeing the business plan and the profits. Or not so much.
Just bike lockers, the towns that participated in this, lockers were discussed, and for the bang for the buck, I think the consensus was the shelter with the racks underneath would serve in a similar fashion, you know, in the downtown area. You hope that with your police station near a train station, people aren't going to rip off bikes, but it can happen. But those lockers are nice. They're in Schaumburg, and you got to have room for them too. That's the other thing. They take up much more space.
Anybody have a ballpark idea what those go out at? No?
We didn't price them out when we looked at it.
I found it interesting and didn't think it would really have any legs here, but it'd be nice if you could see it someday, I guess.
I've never noticed how many bikes are at the train station typically during the day.
About 20.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty consistent number.
Yeah, we went out and took pictures to see if they're really being utilized. There are, while I was there taking pictures, there was a guy that just chose to lock his up to the fence, but.
Right.
And they're not, in my experience, is a little dated now, but they would get stolen, not frequently, but they would get stolen, and usually the nicer ones, the high value bikes, so I would never park my nice bike there. I'd get a junky bike if I was using it for commuting purposes.
How does the locker work? Whenever you drive it in an enclosed.
They were these big boxes, so that's about all I know. It just go, they're bicycle
Totally
lockers.
enclosed and you're individual?
Totally enclosed.
Yeah, it's like,
Weatherproofed.
yeah, it's a weatherproof,
In Franklin Park, the
yeah.
Schaumburg.
And they put your bike in there and, yeah. And they're big enough to handle a full-size, adult bike.
Yep. They're nice.
And if
After
you-
after we fix the paths, and build some new ones, maybe we'll put one locker in there.
I'll be riding something else by then.
Since we have a couple of members of the Park District here, I have a question, just because I hear it a lot. What's going on with the bridge around the north end of Beaver Pond?
Can you go to the microphone? I'm sorry.
Which pond?
Beaver Pond.
We actually have WBK Engineering looking to possibly put in a boardwalk.
A what?
A boardwalk over on that end at Beaver Pond.
Do you know what the cost is on that project as a side?
We're getting numbers right now. It's pretty high than what we anticipated. So we did allocate some funds in our budget this year, but we're still at the,
An elevated boardwalk of some sort.
yeah, it would only be about, right now, what we're looking at is about 2 feet high off the ground and about 70 feet long.
Okay.
So that if anybody is crossing that trail to clear where the water was residing.
Marshy area, okay.
So right now, it's just kind of in conversation with the engineer, and we're getting quotes on how much it would cost to build a boardwalk, so
Okay.
that's kind of where we're at.
Good.
Nothing's been decided.
A lot of people complain about that. I hear it all the time. All the time.
Yep.
And I talk to other people on the Park District Board who say, we're not worrying about that. Well, they are.
So,
They say that jokingly, listen.
but yes, we are looking into it.
Good.
Yep.
Good. Thank you for that information. I appreciate that. Okay, any other new business that anyone has?
Yeah, just for information, aside from the Forest Preserve next Tuesday, their open house in West Chicago in that park district, which I encourage everybody to go to. I also want to mention that the Active Transportation Alliance is doing a lot of suburban outreach. 10 years ago, their name was the Chicago Bicycle Federation, and they said, we're regional. So they changed their name to the Active Transportation Alliance and took on not only bicycling, but walking and trains and that kind of thing. So now they're turning their focus to the suburbs, and they've got 2 meetings coming up that someone might want to consider going to. One is going to be Saturday, October 7th in Elmhurst at their library from 11 to 3:30. And their second meeting is going to be at the Schaumburg Prairie Center, October 21st from 11 to 3:30. So if anybody's interested in going, I'm going to go to both of them. Let me know and I'll send you some information. They're going to provide lunch as long as you register.
What are they trying to accomplish at those meetings?
How you close the gaps in all the trail systems. How do you get those gaps closed? Of course, money is the answer, but you still have to have some kind of influence. So they want to get as many people from as many different towns in those areas to come and talk about how they've been successful. I mean, one of the things that we did, that staff did really well, was the complete streets policy. I mean, if a town doesn't have a complete streets policy, you know, they're kind of behind the times, but a lot of people don't. If a town doesn't have a current map with all the bicycle routes, they're a little bit behind the times. If they don't have a bicycle map with, hey, here's where we would like to go, they're behind the times. Because if you don't have a plan, you know, it doesn't make any difference if you don't have money or if you do have money. But if you don't have a plan, you're not going to get there. So the idea here is to help people figuring out how they can keep moving their town forward and fill in the gaps. So we do have gaps.
I do.
Okay. You have something, Bruce?
I do. Something's eating away over here,
All right.
so forgive me.
Let's hear it.
Is this the Kickstand Classic? Or is it the Bartlett Kickstand Classic?
Well,
Well, they call it the Kickstand Classic, but it's one and the same.
I'm trying to think what the poster on my window says.
You mean where it's drawn people from?
I'm just thinking, we want to stroke our community here with this thing, you know, Bartlett. It's the Bartlett Kickstand Classic. I see it on their website. ATA is the Kickstand Classic coming. You know, we're going to use this little town out here in Chicago. I kind of would like to see this as the Bartlett Kickstand Classic. As goofy as that sounds, we're trying to promote our city with this thing. And if it's going to be an annual event, it's going to be the third annual Bartlett Kickstand Classic, you know, not the third annual Kickstand Classic.
I'm not a lawyer, but they did logo that name, Kickstand Classic, because in case it's not in Bartlett, they will still continue to do that style of a race in another town. So that's why I don't know, if they didn't franchise it.
It's trademarked.
It's trademarked, that's the correct term.
Wasn't there somebody else in competition for the first one last year?
Yes,
Who was it?
Hanover Park wanted to do it with us.
The original,
I thought it was someone else.
originally, there was a call-out, and I'll tell you how it started. It was a call-out through the Northwest Municipal Conference. Does any town want to co-host this idea that active transportation came up with? And there was 15 towns that actually submitted it. And I'm going to brag about Bartlett, but our staff put together a nice RFP, if you will, a proposal, and we got selected. We were shortlisted, if you will, along with Hanover Park, and there was another town, I believe. And then from that shortlist, they were like, well, since we've never done this before, they asked if we would go together, and the bike route just didn't work out between Hanover and Bartlett, because it was on, a lot of it was on County Farm Road, which was not a road that could be closed. So they eventually selected, you know, we agreed, you know, Hanover Park kind of dropped out, they selected us, and we've been with them, but they did trademark that. So, because their idea is to have this type of bike race like other towns have 5K or 10K races. It's kind of it hasn't gotten there yet, but that's what their hope is. So that's why they just trademarked it. We do have an annual intergovernmental agreement with them where we share the costs, and you're right, it's a Bartlett. We're a co-sponsor as they are. So that's our status, I guess. Whether we'd have to call it something else. I guess we'd have to call it the Bartlett Classic or something. But they do, because as long as we work with Active Trans, this is the format, so. And that's my best legalese for it.
Would they be open to suggestion, like our town would like to be promoted with this event? It's going to be an annual event.
We're promoted with it. I mean, we're on all the banners, we're co-sponsors, we're given the credit, you know, like Amita and all the other places. They're co-sponsors too, or sponsors of the event. So I think we get as much play. We put when we put it on the Comcast ads, it's come to Bartlett for the Kickstand Classic. So, you know, that's kind of the marketing effort. But someday it may not be in Bartlett, and it'll still be a race that Active Trans will have in some other town, and they'll call it the Kickstand Classic.
I think we had some discussion last year how we could try and encourage them to stay here by being as helpful as possible. And I don't think they gave you any insurances, but they did discuss having it here for,
They like working
at least
with us.
initially, so.
Yeah, their group likes working with us. They have X amount of dollars this year, and I don't want to belabor it, but we worked with, they were trying to bring in another group that was kind of a side sponsor called the Davis Finney Group, and they're a bunch of super racers, I guess is the best way to call them, because they want to do 500 miles within the time frame. Sorry. I thought that was a
Miles,
lot.
that's a lot.
That's pretty fast bike riding.
Yeah, 100 miles. They're really good bikes. They're using Harleys. But they want to do 100 miles within the time frame. Unfortunately, and we were working with them, and those people come from all over the world to do that. At least I was told. And unfortunately, a big chunk of those people couldn't do it on the day we did it, by the day we set aside for the race, so they dropped out. And they're hoping next year that they'll bring them in.
Have you ever seen those guys up close?
I'm sure they're like professionals.
Frogman.
Unbelievable.
Guess there's a
The
good-
pack goes by and it's like a 30-mile-an-hour wind follows them.
Right. We looked at it from the board standpoint, we thought, we weren't overly happy with it, so in some ways, I think a lot of people on the board are happy that they dropped out, but, it might have been a good thing too, who knows?
There's a reason I'm familiar with it. Wisconsin has some kind of dairy tour for bike racing like that. And all these towns, Wisconsin have it, and these guys hit all those towns. And it becomes kind of a festival type. Where I saw was in Grafton, Wisconsin. It was pretty impressive.
Which is something we're trying to come up with, is doing more things that are more festival-ish like in town, like an Oktoberfest, or combining something with us. So we'll see. Well, anyway, if there's no other new business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Well, yeah.
You didn't vote.